The late afternoon sun poured its golden warmth over the park, bathing everything in a peaceful glow. Daniel Parker sat on a weathered bench, sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup as he watched his 8-year-old son, Liam, kick a worn soccer ball across the grass. The laughter of children echoed around him, filling the air with a sweetness that momentarily dulled the ache in his chest. Ever since his wife's passing, Daniel had lived in a quiet rhythm, working odd jobs, juggling bills, and doing his best to raise his boy alone. Life wasn't easy, but these small, fleeting moments with Liam were his treasures. Just as he leaned back to enjoy the fading light, a sudden scream tore through the calm. His heart jumped. Near the swings, a little girl, no older than 6, stood frozen in terror as a man in a dark hoodie sprinted toward her, a gun glinting in his hand. Time slowed, but Daniel's instincts took over before fear could root him in place. He dropped his coffee and ran, legs pounding against the ground, every muscle straining toward the girl. The man raised his arm, finger tightening on the trigger. The gunshot cracked through the air, shattering the peaceful hum of the park. Pain exploded through Daniel's side, hot and sharp, but he didn't stop. With a desperate grunt, he lunged forward and wrapped his arms around the girl, pulling her down to the grass, shielding her small frame with his own body. She was trembling, clutching his sleeve, her tiny voice quivering as she whispered, "Don't die, please don't die." Around them, chaos erupted, parents shouting, children crying, sirens wailing in the distance. The gunman's eyes darted wildly before he turned and fled, disappearing into a waiting car that screeched away. Daniel's knees buckled, the world tilting as his blood seeped through his shirt. He blinked hard, trying to focus on the girl's tear-streaked face hovering above him. "It's okay," he rasped weakly, forcing a faint smile as darkness began to close in. Just before he blacked out, tires screeched nearby and a black SUV halted at the park's edge. A woman in a business suit sprinted toward them, her voice breaking as she cried, "Sophie." The last thing Daniel heard before everything went dark was a mother's sob and a child's desperate whisper, "He saved me." 2 days later, the soft hum of hospital machines filled the sterile white room where Daniel Parker lay propped up against stiff pillows. The bullet wound in his side burned faintly, dulled only by the painkillers coursing through his veins. His thoughts drifted between the chaos at the park, the terrified little girl's face, and the image of his son, Liam, waiting at home with no idea how close his father had come to not returning. The door creaked open, and a familiar but unexpected figure stepped in, Olivia Grant, the woman from the park. Today, she looked nothing like the commanding CEO who had arrived in that sleek SUV. She wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, her hair loosely tied back, her eyes soft but weary. "You're awake," she said quietly, holding a paper bag that smelled faintly of herbs. "I brought you chicken soup. My mother's recipe." Daniel blinked, momentarily taken aback by her gentleness. "You didn't have to," he murmured. Olivia set the bag on the table beside him, her gaze fixed on him with an intensity that made him uneasy. After a moment, she spoke again, her tone blunt but sincere. "I looked into you. You're a single father. You work construction part-time. You've been behind on rent for 2 months." Daniel's muscles tensed, pride rising like a wall between them. "I didn't save your daughter for a reward," he said quietly. Olivia's expression softened, her voice lowering to almost a whisper. "I know. That's why you deserve one." She took a small step closer, her businesslike confidence replaced by something more personal. "I own Grant Enterprises. I can make sure you and your son never struggle again. A stable job, health insurance, whatever you need." Daniel shook his head, the edge of stubborn pride glinting in his eyes. "I'm not a charity case." Just then, a small figure peeked from behind Olivia's leg. Sophie, the little girl from the park, clutched a crayon drawing in her hand. She shuffled to his bedside and held it out, a picture of 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright red heart, with "Me plus Hero" written in uneven letters. Daniel's throat tightened as he looked at her small, hopeful face. Olivia's gaze softened too. "This isn't charity," she said quietly. "It's gratitude, and maybe the beginning of something new." Weeks passed, and Daniel's life began to change in ways he had never imagined. True to her word, Olivia Grant kept her promise. His hospital bills vanished overnight, paid quietly without fanfare, and a week later he was offered a new position, safety supervisor at one of Grant Enterprises' largest construction projects. The job came with steady pay, benefits, and a sense of stability Daniel hadn't felt in years. At first, he struggled to adjust to the new rhythm, still uncomfortable with the idea that his heroism had brought him here. But as time went on, the uneasy gratitude turned into a genuine friendship with Olivia. Their paths intertwined naturally, school pickups, weekend park visits, and family dinners that began out of politeness but evolved into something warm and familiar. Liam and Sophie became inseparable, their laughter filling both homes as if they had always belonged together. Olivia, once the polished CEO who ruled boardrooms with precision, began showing a different side, a woman who could laugh over burnt toast and smile at silly jokes. Daniel noticed how her sharpness softened when she was around her daughter and how her eyes sparkled whenever Sophie and Liam played together. One Friday evening, after a long day at the site, Daniel met Olivia and the kids at a small diner near the edge of town. They talked about everything and nothing, and when they stepped outside into the cool night air, the warmth between them lingered. A passerby stopped and pointed at Daniel. "You're that guy from the news, right? The one who took a bullet for that kid?" Daniel shifted awkwardly, giving a modest nod. "Just did what anyone would have done." The man smiled and walked off, leaving Olivia staring at him with quiet admiration. "Not everyone would have done what you did," she said softly. Daniel looked down at her, catching the flicker of emotion in her eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. Around them, the children's laughter echoed as Sophie tugged Liam toward the toy store window. Olivia's hand brushed against his, lingering just long enough to make his heart skip. That night, as they walked together under the streetlights, Daniel realized he was no longer living the same lonely, uncertain life. Something was changing, something that felt like the beginning of hope, and maybe, love. It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the air carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant fireplaces. Daniel and Olivia walked side by side through the park where everything had once changed, their steps slow and unhurried as Liam and Sophie ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the dusky light. The place that had once been stained by fear now felt peaceful, almost sacred. Daniel glanced at Olivia, noticing how her expression softened as she watched the children play. Her usual confident composure was gone, replaced by warmth and quiet reflection. "You know," she began softly, "that day in the park, I thought I lost everything that mattered to me. But then you appeared, out of nowhere, and somehow gave it all back." Daniel smiled faintly, his voice low. "I didn't think. I just reacted." She turned to him, her eyes glistening. "You didn't just save Sophie, Daniel. You saved me too. I'd forgotten what it felt like to trust someone, to have someone stand between me and the worst of the world." Her honesty caught him off guard. He stopped walking, looking at her under the soft glow of a nearby streetlight. "You don't have to thank me anymore," he said gently. "You already have, in more ways than you know." She smiled, but it trembled slightly, the emotion raw and unguarded. In that quiet moment, with the children's laughter in the distance, Daniel reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they had been meant to find each other all along. The simple contact said everything words couldn't. Ahead of them, Sophie turned and waved, her little voice carrying across the park. "Come on, you're too slow." Olivia laughed, the sound light and genuine, and Daniel couldn't help but laugh too. They started walking again, hand in hand, toward the children who had unknowingly brought them together. As the four of them left the park, the streetlights shimmered like tiny stars above them. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the heavy weight of loneliness lift completely from his chest. He hadn't just taken a bullet that day, he had been given a second chance at life, love, and family. What began as an act of courage had turned into something far greater, a new beginning neither of them had seen coming, but both were ready to embrace.